everybody, welcome back to Crossroad Garage. So today, February 9th, I've got my Super Dad coffee mug out. And that's for a reason. So 2 years ago today is the day that my father passed away. And my father taught me anything and everything that I know about doing anything, really. So anyway, I wanted to kind of kick out a little video, talking about something that he showed me a long time ago. My father, he was he was in I grew up around cars with my father, and sorry, it's a little hard to talk about him. But yeah, he restored Model A's in his later years, Model A's, Model T's. But he was always working on cars ever since I was a kid. I can remember him working on cars. And so I remember one time he used to tell this story all the time because he would always, you guys have been there, if you grew up with a father who worked on cars, you were the guy out there with the flashlight, and you, after 20 minutes of holding that flashlight in one place, you get shaky, and that's when the yelling would start. But what you don't realize is everything that you learn from just sitting there or standing there holding the flashlight, and then all the stuff that you would pick up. I remember my father used to tell this story all the time. I think I was 13, maybe 14, around that age. And he came home from work, and he comes out to the garage, and we had this old, I believe it was a 78 Camaro, and the water pump had gone bad on it. And so it was parked in the garage, and we had the new water pump. Back then, you couldn't just order things online, you actually had to go get them. But we had a new water pump. We had picked it up, and it was sitting there. So while my father was at work, I was like, well, I'm gonna help Dad out. And so I go out there and I tear apart the front of the engine. So by the time he got home, he walks in, comes out to the garage, and he's like, well, what are you doing? And I already had the new water pump on, starting to reassemble the front of the engine. And and he was so proud in that moment, and he told that story all the time. He was like, he was just a little guy, and I come home and he's got the front of the Camaro tore apart, and he's putting it back together with the new water pump. Which looking today, replacing a water pump on a small block Chevy, not a big deal, but to a 13 or 14-year-old kid, he was really proud. So I hope I continue to make him proud even to this day. That's a lot of what Crossroad Garage was built on, was, like I've said before, therapy. And a lot of it was therapy of, getting past a lot of stuff in my life. The major thing was losing my father. But I digress. So what I'm going to show you guys today is an old timer trick, and it's still it's a great thing today. I mean, I honestly think if you ask me, if you said, hey, I want to get into building cars, what should I buy? Well, outside of a basic tool set, I'm going to say you need two things. I'm going to say you need an angle grinder, and then I'm going to tell you that you need an oxygen acetylene torch. And the reason for that is an oxygen acetylene torch, not only can you solder, braze, weld with it, but you can also, you can cut metal, you can heat things up, you can burn off rusted bolts, all that kind of, it's such a versatile tool to have. And when I was growing up, we didn't have a lot of money to, work on stuff. So, we had very basic tools, and, back in the day, it was pretty much impossible to find somebody who had a MIG welder that you would know of. TIG welder, forget about it. It's just nobody had one. So what I want to show you today is, and I had to actually do a test run because it's been so long since I've done this, but I'm going to show you how to weld some sheet metal with an oxygen acetylene torch. So a lot of times I will, which I use the MIG welder. I rarely ever use this, obviously. Usually I'll use it if I'm just filling a hole, and I'll get some fill wire. I'll just heat it up and kind of melt the fill wire in there. But I always save, when you run your spool dry, I'll save a little bit, and you can straighten it out, and you can use that. And this is 023 MIG wire. But for today's purposes, we're not going to use that. We're going to go straight old school on this one, which is using a metal coat hanger. So I cut this piece off, so you got a nice rod. Now you can go and you can get a, you can go to Harbor Freight and you can buy, TIG sticks and whatever you want, to do this. But if you're just in a pinch, you can grab a clothes hanger and you're good to go. So we're going to start out. We got some 16 and some 18 gauge, and we're going to weld it up. We're going to talk about the oxygen acetylene tank a little bit here. So what we got going on as far as that goes, I'll show you guys. This is my oxygen acetylene setup. Now, there are other gases you can use besides acetylene. Acetylene's kind of the go-to. I think that's what everybody used back in the day. Nowadays you have, you can use MAP gas, which I believe is MAP Pro now. And then you can also use propane. You can use propane, and then you want your fuel and then your oxygen. I call it oxygen acetylene setup, but it's really a oxygen fuel setup. Because you can use, there's multiple fuels you can use. Acetylene, I think, is the best. Acetylene burns the hottest. MAP gas would be second, and then propane would be third. But the MAP Pro that's out nowadays, I believe it's sort of a mixture of propane and MAP, I believe. Don't quote me on that, I'm not 100% sure. But anyway, I use oxygen acetylene. It's very easily accessible, especially I do HVAC. I have my own torches. I have a set of torches that I keep on my truck, and they're relatively inexpensive. You can go to Harbor Freight. You can get you a set. You're looking a couple $100, say $30 for an angle grinder. Spit out another $100 for one of those Pittsburgh all-in-one toolkits. Under $500, you're ready to go. You're ready to start doing stuff. And back in the day, people used to, they'd chop the tops of cars and stuff, and they would chop them using a torch tip, and then they would weld them back together, using the welding or brazing tip. Now, on most setups, you're going to get your cutting torch tip, and I found that you're going to get a number 2 tip, which number 2 tip is, I like it. It's what I'm used to using. But you could get smaller or bigger depending on what kind of metal you're going to be welding. I would not hesitate to weld, a 1/4 inch metal with this. You really do get a strong weld with it. So we're going to start out. We'll start with the 18 gauge. We'll weld it up, and then we'll move on to the 16 gauge. So So anyway, I'm just going to set it up on the magnet here, get a couple tacks on there so that I can take it off at that point. And then we'll go from there. Now this does get hot, so you need to be careful of that. So let's go over the flame though. So first you turn on your acetylene first. So or your fuel, whichever fuel you're using, and then I don't know if you guys can see this, but this black soot coming off there, it's carbon burning off. So you open up your oxygen, and you're going to begin to neutralize that flame. Now, I don't know. Let me shut this off for a second and see if I can get a cover on here for you guys to be able to see this flame. It's going in my coffee. Okay, so hopefully you guys will be able to see this now. So that right there is just straight acetylene. And we're going to open up the oxygen. Now, as we begin to neutralize the flame, hopefully you guys can see this. It's probably hard to see, but there's actually a small flame, and then the bigger flame, and then you have the wisping outside. Wisping, sure that's the word. But you want to bring the two inner flames together, and that's when the flame is neutralized. Now, if you added a little more acetylene, okay, so now you're going to have a carbonized flame. It's not going to burn quite as hot. So let's bring that back in. And then if you added more oxygen, then you're going to have an oxidized flame, which is going to burn hotter than a neutral flame. So for this, we're going to bring it down to a neutral flame. And so I'm going to, if I can find there it is. Lost my rod, guys. So I'm going to start out, and you kind of want to go at an angle. That way you're kind of preheating the metal as you go along. And this is very much like TIG welding. So, you want to get a puddle, kind of move it along. Now all that flying off there, that's mill scale. Because you're heating up so much of the metal. Well, that's not the most beautiful weld I've done in a long time, but that is going to be we penetrated good. That's going to be a strong weld. We'll test that here in a minute. So let's move on to the 16 gauge. So again, on this, on the thicker gauge, I'm going to run it a little bit hotter. You can kind of hear it. Got a couple tacks on there. Pull that off there. That one didn't hold very good, but that's alright. Go for it, see what happens. You know, I'm just kind of dabbing it there like you would if you're TIG welding. Dabbing it, kind of manipulating that puddle a little bit. Moving on. So let's see what we got on that one. Now that one with the higher heat is a much better weld. You know, as you can see, I mean, it's you know, it penetrated through to the backside really well. And honestly, I don't think either one of these welds will break. Let's give this one a second to cool down, and then we're going to break out. We're going to do the hammer test on it. Alright guys, so we got our piece of 18 gauge that we welded up here, and our 16 gauge that we welded up here. We got the persuader out, so we're going to see, you know, how strong these welds are. So I'm going to give them a good whack. Now, I clearly flattened the material, and you can see that weld is, it did not break. So I gotta say, I wouldn't be afraid of that weld. That one we lost a little bit there, but the point here is, guys, I don't know what's going on. I'm getting all wobbly here on the tripod. Anyway, so my point here is, guys, you know, get out and start doing stuff. Do y'all hear the train? Good time for the train to come through. It's alright. I'm not trying to film a video. Just going through. Okay. Anyway, get out there, start working. You know, a lot of kids today, they're not getting that guidance like a lot of us did. A lot of the older generation did. You know, out in the garage working on stuff. So that's kind of why I started Crossroad Garage, outside of, you know, like I said, therapy, to, you know, have somebody to talk to, which was the camera. But, you know, to get people out there moving, motivated. I mean, if a guy like me with not many tools can do this kind of stuff, you know, just using a little creativity, and, you know, don't be afraid to make mistakes. That's my point of all this. You know, that was a, you know, another lesson that, you know, I learned from my father was, you know, don't be afraid to fail, or try and fail. Don't try to fail, but don't be afraid to fail. As long as you're trying, you know, do your best. And again, I just every day hope that I'm making him proud in some small way. Yeah. Anyway, if you have any questions, you know, feel free to drop them in the comments. I'll probably do this once a year. Actually, you know, he taught me a lot, so I'll drop some little nuggets maybe once a year. And, you know, if you have, you know, if this is something that you do all the time, obviously it's not something, you know, I use the MIG welder nowadays, it's just easier. But, you know, if this is something you do all the time and you've got some tips that somebody out there, you know, could use, drop it in the comments, you know. And guys, if you're, you know, if you have questions about this and you want to start doing stuff like this, you know, maybe check out the comment section. There might be some answers for you. don't drop negative comments, please, about how to do things, though. Don't tell people, don't waste your money and go out and buy a TIG welder. A lot of people don't have money for a TIG welder. I mean, I realize that you can get a TIG welder for a couple $100 nowadays. You're not getting that good of a TIG welder, A, and then are you taking into consideration the fact that, you know, they have to go out and buy a tank of argon, which is what, $400? I think that's what it is around here. So yeah, you buy a $200 TIG welder, you still have to go out and buy $400 argon, and you know, maybe they don't have the electric, maybe they, you know, I don't know, whatever situation is. This is a good way to get started, is all I'm saying. I'm not saying it's replacing TIG welding, but back in the day, this is what people did, you know. They were obviously better at it than I am, and I haven't done this in, well, today I broke out and did it. So I welded one piece before you guys got it, before I started the camera, to see if I remembered it, and then the two pieces here. So yeah, so you know, let's try to guide the next generation. Let's not try to, you know, tear them down. You know, because if if our generation is the last of it, you know, we're gonna have rotting cars out there, and you know, we need to preserve history. So anyway, thanks for checking out this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. You know, this is kind of a rough one for me, for many reasons, but anyway, thank you all again. Y'all stay awesome. We're approaching 350 subscribers right now, so that's awesome. I'd love to get to that 500. We're going to be giving away the lowrider bicycle at 500. So yeah, check out those videos if you haven't. Check out some of the stuff on the Willies. I want to get back on the Willies soon. And yeah, that's it. So stay awesome, guys. I'll see you later.